let's just talk about the Ten Hag era that has led us to this point where they have a new head coach in charge in 9 days' time, Paul. How much is this down in terms of what happened to Ten Hag on Monday to the way that we've seen United run over the last few years, and how much is it down to a manager who quite simply lost his way?
I don't like the way the manager lost his way. I wouldn't say he's a bad manager. Do you know what I mean? I think sometimes I just think the job was too big for him. I really do. I think sometimes.
But isn't that why he lost his way?
Yeah, but he lost his way in, they should have beat West Ham. They had chance after chance. Fenerbahce chance after. They've had chances in games. They've won 2 cups. It's not like it's been a nightmare. The problem for me, and the biggest problem has been, is recruitment. The players he's brought in, I haven't seen him improve a player that he's brought in. The players that were there haven't improved, and that's the big problem. That's the problem. And I think it's because it's just such a big club and everything is, if you're at Brighton and Brighton draw with Wolves 2-2 like they did last week, it's 2-2. Everybody just goes like that,
Yeah.
If that happens at Man United, what happened at the end of that football match, that is headlines. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that was headlines on BBC, on the news that night. Do you know what I mean? So I just think the job was too big for him. I think he underestimated. I don't think he knew the Premier League. I think the players he were bringing in, like Anthony for 80 million, I keep on going back to him. I don't want to pick on him. But 80 million for Anthony, you've got to understand Dutch football and the English game is a lot different, a lot different. And there hasn't been too many that have come and succeeded.
And the amount of money, Tim, and we spoke about this on Wednesday night, that Erik Ten Hag has spent during his tenure of Manchester United. Wow. He was allowed to spend more money again this summer because they decided to stick with him after the FA Cup final win against Manchester City. Can we argue that in terms of the players that he's brought in for those kind of sums, and Ante right at the top, 85.4 million, Mercer's already talked about him. Can you make a case for any of those? When they come to a club, you want to see them improve because that brings improvement to the team. That's partly why you bring him in. Can you make an argument for any of those where you have seen a tangible improvement under Ten Hag?
No. You'll get 200 million for the lot of them, I would suggest. I mean, he spent ridiculous amounts of money. He's improved none of them, as Merce said, and they've all devalued under this manager. The reason he's getting a sack is because results ain't good enough. He's won 2 cups in 2 years. His stock will still be high. You're going to get a job in Holland again. And credit to him for that. But you need to be consistent. You need to improve the group. Recruitment. A lot of these players he brought in himself. He knew them. He knew them. There'll be no more of that. No more of that with a new manager. He wasn't good enough. I don't think he had the personality to manage Man United. I really don't. I just think he needs a strong character. He needs someone who can relate to the fans, who can relate to the players, and most importantly, and he needs to be able to manage upwards. I think it's almost like they give him carte blanche and let him run the whole club. Now, that can't happen anymore. It doesn't happen anywhere. And I think that the new regime with Dan Ashworth and Jason Wilcox, they won't let that happen. They'll get a handle on this now. I mean, wearing that suit in that weather was a bad mistake as well.
You can't blame him for that. But he should know the Manchester weather. Say that
aside. No, I'm joking. But look, Erik will walk away. I mean, he's told everyone that, which is quite right, he has 1 trophy at that club. He's 2 trophies in 2 years. His stock is still high enough to go and get a job, but it will never be in the Premier League again. It's the hardest league in the world, the most competitive league in the world. He brought in players who wasn't up to it. He had no playing identity whatsoever. There was no progression where you can really hang on to it. When we see Klopp coming in, he stumbled in his first year, but you knew he was building towards something. Same with Guardiola. We didn't see that with Erik. So the only surprise of him getting sacked is they didn't do it in the summer. They should have done it then.
The thing is as well, it's changed. He's won 2 cups.
Yeah.
They'd rather be in the Champions League.
Yeah.
That's the difference now, isn't it? People they just want to be in the top 4. Yeah. The cups now, I mean, you watched midweek, it was sad, some of the teams. Haaland don't get a game. Palmer doesn't come on. Teams are not that, for me, I still go back to all them players. Probably Martinez. I think Martinez out of that list, I'd take Martinez. He's the only one. The others...
Make a little bit of an argument.
Oh, yeah, a little bit of it. Bar his injury, he was impressive. But, I honestly can't believe what Man United let him do to buy them kind of players for 80 million.
Try and get rid of them. That's the problem.
Wow.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. We'll talk about that in terms of Amorim a little bit later. But, Sue, we discussed this a little bit on Wednesday night. You know, when you look at the teams in the Premier League, you say, talk about Brighton, even Liverpool under Slot now, it's early, but we're beginning to see what the identity of that team is, the way they play. With Ten Hag, we sat here for so many weeks this season, last season, talking about the lack of identity that his side had. Was that the major problem for him? Actually, the players didn't know what he was trying to do.
Yeah, I think that's certainly one of the problems, because you could just see they were very disjointed. So you could see this season he was looking to line up in that 4-2-3-1 where their fullback, maybe Dalot, going into the midfield. So you could sort of see what he was trying to do, but it just wasn't quite working. They'd go to press sometimes, other times they'd sit back, but again, it just wouldn't quite work. So, yeah, I think when you go back to the first year of Ten Hag coming in, I think we all praised him for how he dealt with things off the field, and you could see he obviously won a trophy in that first year, and we were thinking, OK, that second year, are we then going to see a progression? The second year he had loads of injuries, so you sort of said, OK, mitigating circumstances, that's the reason that they haven't progressed. And then when it gets to the third year, this year, that's when you start going, well, actually, the players are back fit, the recruitment's not been good enough, we're not seeing an improvement in development of players.
And looking at these pictures here, Dawes, his two trophies, the first one was the League Cup, and then the FA Cup last season against Manchester City, where he found a way on the day to beat Guardiola's side and pick up his second trophy. But in terms of the thinking going forward, how much for INEOS did that muddy the waters? Because all the speculation ahead of that game was that he was probably on his way out. They were already talking to other managers. Then he goes and wins that. Were they not brave enough after that win? Because that was the time to make the move, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and we all thought it. I was at the Cup final. I was speaking to Sky Sports in the morning, thinking, look, there was only looked like there was going to be one winner, and Erik Ten Hag and that Manchester United team found a way of getting over the line and winning the FA Cup, and that must have changed their mindset. It have to have changed their thought. I know there was an awful lot of speculation, which I hated for Erik Ten Hag, and I've been sat on here and always tried to defend managers, but the players he's brought in have not been good enough. But I didn't like the build-up to that week of the FA Cup, the way he spoke about. They were talking to other managers, supposedly looking that it was only a matter of time before he was going to get sacked. And then he wins it, and then he signs a new contract. I mean, this is Manchester United. They're 14th in the league with 11 points. Ultimately, you have to win football matches, you're going to get sacked. And I think they were pushed into a corner. One, giving him a new contract, which I thought was ridiculous. And then two, now you don't get results, you've got to get sacked, because we haven't seen the performances. We didn't see it last year. It's the first season he got into the top four, and I'm thinking, wow, this is a good start for Manchester United. Then it just fell off, and it's carried on. So they've made a decision. Now they're going to look to move forward. But ultimately, I mean, you look at the players that he's brought in, and how are they going to get rid of those players? Because for me, Manchester United have to be challenging for the Premier League. They are nowhere near that with that group of players. I don't care who's coming in to try and turn it around.
That's a long-term project. That's not next season, is it?
But even top four, Simon, I really don't see that. I don't, because these players, unless Ruben Amorim is going to be unbelievable as a manager and get the best out of these players, because they let Erik Ten Hag down, no doubt in that. One, whether questionable, was he good enough? No, because he hasn't got the points on the board. But those players have got to be better than where they are in this league at this moment in time. And you see after one game, albeit against Leicester in midweek, they go and score 5 goals. We've all been players. And ultimately, players get the managers sacked. That is fact.
Are you suggesting they weren't playing for Ten Hag by the end?
I look at the commitment, I look at the work rate, I look at the performances, the goals they give away. The players have to take responsibility. And now a new manager comes in, they'll get a bounce, of course they will. They've got it with Van Nistelrooy in midweek. And it could be no different tomorrow with him, because they know they have to put their ideas up. And they've got some good players, by the way. They can still be looking for the Champions League. But that's their sky for me. That has to be their aim, because they're a long way off the top.
Do you feel some sympathy for Ten Hag, Paul, in the way that INEOS have handled this? As Dawson's already been talking about, that news was filtered out ahead of the FA Cup final. They're actively searching for new managers. He then has to take his team out. He wins it. They then offer him a new contract. They give him a lot of money to spend again this summer. And here we are, 9 games into the new season in terms of the Premier League, and he's gone. It's been messy, hasn't it, from INEOS?
I'm sure he's not checking behind the sofa for some coins to get some milk.
I wasn't suggesting that.
Do you know what I mean? He's just got a 4-year contract. You know, he's been looked after. That was their fault. I mean, they've come in, they had no clue about football. let's be honest, they have no clue about football. They're business people, but they're not clue about football. They were just kicking it down the road. Oh, well, if we beat West Ham, you stand. If he'd have beat West Ham, he'd have still been manager today.
And we'd be talking
And we'd
the
be
usual
still-
topics, wouldn't we?
West Ham.
And they could have been West Ham. And this is the point. You have to make a decision sooner or later. You've got to look at it and go, right, wait a minute, where are we in the league? We're a million miles behind. We have to make the decision. The new manager should have been at the start of the season.
Yeah.
For them to think that because they beat Man City in a one-off football match at Wembley, and fair play to them, and they deserve to win that game, that you think that over 38 games, everything's going to change because of that one football match. And that was the case. That's when, and at the end of the day, Ten Hag should have gone, you know what, it's only because they offered him a new contract with a lorry load of money. He should have gone then, you know what, I'm going to stop. I'll take it here. You've been looking for other managers. I'll walk away. But all of a sudden, they knock at his door and go, we're going to give you a new contract with new money. He must have been looking for Ant and Deck. He must have gone like that. Are they joking?
Beatles
Honestly.
about, wasn't it?
Yeah, they must have. They must have. So I don't blame him, but, you know, this should have been a lot quicker. For this, you know, for now them to change, they got a long... I'm with Dawes, they're a million miles off. They need to learn how to start crawling before they even start walking and running.
And it's a job that goes beyond just the now head coach that is coming in, Tim, isn't it? In terms of the culture at United that INEOS are addressing, in terms of the long-term decline. There's been comparisons with Liverpool in the 90s and how long it's taken them to get back to where we've seen them in recent years under Klopp and now Slot as well. This is long-term. Radcliffe talked about 3 years. There's going to have to be patience, even with this new guy coming in.
Yeah, I think there's been patience already from the fans. All right, they've been given a few sweets, you know, with a couple of cups, you know, which is fantastic. A lot of other teams would have wanted to achieve that. But I think straight away you're going to see progress here. You will see progress. He will improve. Some of the players are already there. They can't all leave the football club. It's going to be impossible. You know, some of the money, you've seen the fees, what are paid. Some of the money, what some of them guys earn, they ain't just going to go away. Say, OK, you don't want me. I'll go and play for West Ham or for whoever wants these players, who they'd ship them out to. Hopefully Saudi all of a sudden start wanting to spend a bit of money and they might be able to shift a few of them out there. It's going to be very difficult to rebuild until you clear your decks. You need to clear the decks to get new players in. But they've got football people in there now with Wilcox, with Dan Ashworth. They've done it before. They know how to build. They know footballers. They know football. Leave it to them to work with Ruben Amorim to rebuild this club. And on the pitch, you're going to see a playing identity, a clear identity of how he wants to play. In turn, that will help with recruitment because it's easy to recruit someone who has a clear identity of how he wants to play the game, rather than just scattergun approach, buying loads of players, just throwing them onto the pitch. Hopefully you get moments to win football matches. That's what Ten Hag was hoping for.